Hi, welcome to episode number 23 of the Practical EdTech Podcast. I'm your host, Richard Byrne, and like every other podcast that I've done, in this one, I'm going to share some news and notes from the world of EdTech, share some thoughts from my classroom this week, and answer a handful of questions from readers and listeners and viewers like you. So let's get right into it and start at the top with an event I hosted this week, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday afternoons and evenings. I hosted the Practical EdTech Creativity Conference. More than 500 people registered for it, and more than 125 people attended one or more of the sessions. So that's actually a pretty good turnout for free webinars. If you missed one of the webinars, maybe you were teaching or you had other things going on, they're all available now on my YouTube channel. So if you're watching the YouTube version of this podcast, you've already found it. If you're listening to the podcast, I'll make sure that my YouTube channel is linked up in the show notes. And subscribers to the Practical EdTech newsletter, which comes out on Sunday evenings, Eastern Time, will get the links for all of the webinars emailed directly to them, where they can watch them all. So, some great presentations in there. My friend Tony Vincent did a long session about how to make your own icons and doing some really cool things with drawing in Google Slides. You can also do it with Google Drawings. We had a great session about using Makey for assistive technology. We did wearable electronics was one of the sessions. I talked about 3D printing in a session. Talked about how to make your own apps in another session. Talked about drones in one of the presentations. And we also talked about making videos. So really wide range of topics that were covered in the Practical EdTech Creativity Conference. And again, if you missed any of them, just head to my YouTube channel and you'll see them there. As I said, one of the sessions that was very well attended was Tony Vincent's session on how to make your own icons. And like I said, he focused on using Google Drawings and Google Slides to do that. But there are other ways to do those things, as Tony mentioned, including Keynote and PowerPoint. The next morning after Tony's session, and Tony and I had a little banter going on during his session about how I'm not always the most artistic person, and he's much more artistic than I am. The next morning, Mike Tollefson tweeted a really interesting tool from Microsoft Fonts Maker, and it lets you create your own fonts based on your own handwriting. Now, you have to do this with a stylus or a touchscreen device, so it's great if you have a Microsoft Surface tablet or something like that, a Windows tablet that has a touch screen and a stylus capability. But the Microsoft Fonts Maker lets you use your own handwriting to fill out, the keyboard A through Z, and you can make your own fonts. So kind of neat. New TED Ed lesson out this week. All about Lord of the Flies. It's called Why Should You Read Lord of the Flies? Great little introduction to Lord of the Flies. Now, this is the 34th installment in TED Ed's series of Why Should You Read X, Y, or Z? Okay? Why should you read? And they're all excellent introductions to the key plots of classic works, like Lord of the Flies. But they're also good introductions to the authors and what was happening in the world when the authors were writing their stories. For my Google Slides users out there, there's a new to me, it's been out for 6 or 7 months, I believe now, but new to me, Google Slides add-on called Script Slide. And I tested it out this week. I actually used it with my own students on Friday morning. Script Slide lets you take your speaker notes from your Google Slides and have it appear on a teleprompter-like screen. Okay? So it opens up in a different web browser, different browser window, and it scrolls through just like a teleprompter, but you control it with your phone. So just tap with your phone, and you control the pace at which things scroll through. The reason I used it on Friday morning, I used it with my freshmen, because we were doing some vocab review, and one of the things I like to do is put the vocabulary words on the board and not just do definitions, but actually talk about what the vocabulary means in context. So it's just a nice little way for me to kind of control things remotely. Just a handy little tool. And I already had the slides written up, so it was easy to just use script slide, and away we went. Some other neat new tools that are out there. Class Tools, Russell Tarr, Class Tools created a new image annotation tool. It's called the Image Annotator. Pretty straightforward. It's free, easy to use, doesn't require any kind of registration. It's a lot like ThingLink. If you ever used ThingLink, and if you've never used ThingLink, by the way, I have a video about how to use it. So the new Class Tools tool is a lot like ThingLink. You can upload an image and then put little pin markers on it or markers on it that when you click, display more information. And you can write in whatever you want in those little markers, right? So basically just bookmarks that you're putting inside an image. It's a really neat little tool. Great for doing things like making interactive diagrams. You can even do it with a map, upload a map and do a little interactive map. Of course, any kind of picture you can think of, you can annotate with that. So check that out. Again, in my YouTube channel, I have a video about how to do that. And the last new tool that I want to share with you is not a tool that's new. It's been around for a while, but it has a major update coming. Canva, the graphics creation tool, last week announced a whole bunch of new features that they're rolling out, including a video editor, a desktop application, and probably most significant for a lot of us is a new education version. And the education version of Canva is going to be completely free and will enable collaboration between students or between teachers and students, much like the way Google Docs does. As TechCrunch wrote in their article, it looks like Canva is trying to do the same thing that Google does, hook them early, and it'll keep them for life, right? So Canva is going to have a new education version. I personally have used Canva for a long time. I really like it. It makes people like me who are not generally artistic able to make some neat graphics. Full disclosure, I worked with Canva many years ago. Was an advisor on an early education project that they did. But I have no financial interest in it whatsoever. Just want to put that out there that I do have a little bit of history with Canva. So, some thoughts from my classroom this week. First of all, I went to school this week for 2 days with a nasty infection in my eye. And if you're watching the video of this, you'll see it's still kind of red and swollen. Not pink eye, don't worry. Not pink eye. Something I've been dealing with for a while. That's why my eye appears a little bit puffy. It's clearing up. But anyway, little nagging things like that, combined with my 3-year-old not sleeping. She's refusing to sleep. So anyone who has advice on how to make a 3-year-old stay in bed, please send me an email. Those two things combined made my patience a little bit short sometimes, and I've kind of felt bad about that. And actually, mentioned that to my freshman on Friday morning. I was like, you know what? I've probably been a little bit short with you this week because I've got an eye infection and my toddler's not sleeping. And so I think it's important to just be upfront with teenagers. Like, hey, this is what's going on. Like, I'm a real person just like you are, and I'm trying to push through it just like you are as well. Speaking of my freshmen, I am super psyched, and I mentioned this on my webinar that I did earlier this week about making apps. I am super psyched about one of my students who 2 months ago when I took over the class, I wasn't sure if he was going to make it. First of all, it's an elective class that he was just stuck in. He wasn't really interested in the class at all. He was just kind of put there by the guidance department because he needed to fill out his schedule. and now he's absolutely crushing it. He is like the one who is figuring things out and showing other people what to do now, and it's amazing to watch. Really, really psyched about that. That's one of those things where, like, okay, like this is worth it. Like the struggle with that student early on was totally worth it because now he's absolutely crushing it. He's doing a great job. So that was exciting. And Friday morning he had another big breakthrough. He's been working on a little app that he's trying to build up, and he had another big breakthrough with it on Friday morning, and it was just awesome to see. Like give him a high five. All right, so the last little reflection from my classroom this week is the idea of structure. We're getting up to Christmas vacation week is next week, and noticing that some of my students really seem to crave structure, and when they don't have it, they struggle with it. And this really popped up with my sophomore class this week, because my sophomores have been working on kind of a long-term project, and they've been working on a long-term Arduino project. They've also been working on a long-term computer lab setup project. And one of the days, I didn't really give them a whole lot of step-by-step structure. I just said, okay, here are the two big goals for the day, and let them go. And they struggled. And so I had to kind of back it up a little bit. I realized they were struggling. I had them for 3 hours. And about an hour into it, I realized, okay, this is not working. And I had to back it up and give them a little bit more structure. So that's that. Now it's time for Q&A, questions from readers and listeners and viewers like you. All right, so first question came from Rita. I was wondering if you can shed some light on this situation. I have been using form limiter to limit the number of students who come in from multiple study halls. Even though I have a limit set on it, kids say they were still able to sign in. They don't show up in my responses. I asked if they saw a message that says the form was no longer taking responses, and they say no. Am I doing something wrong? Do you know how I can correct this? Thanks, Rita. So Rita, you're not doing anything wrong. I don't think you're doing anything wrong. I will tell you this, with form limiter and choice eliminator and a couple of other add-ons that either limit choices or remove choices over time, with those add-ons, there is a lag. And so if there's a lag between when the limit is reached and when it actually gets applied. And I've seen this before. There's like a 5 or 10 minute lag sometimes in there. And so if you have, particularly if you're doing a study hall, like you're opening up the form at the beginning of the period or something like that, and you have 30 kids all try to get in on it at once, but you only have 20 slots available. If all 30 of them go at the same time, even though you've got that 20 time limit, the form doesn't respond fast enough. The add-on doesn't respond fast enough to actively shut it down. That's what's happening there. There's a little bit of a lag. You're not doing anything wrong. There's just a little bit of lag between the data being collected and the limit being enabled. So that's what's happening there. You're not doing anything wrong. It's just kind of a quirk of it when you have a whole bunch of students trying to respond at the exact same time. Because of that lag, some students will be able to get into the form even after that limit has been reached, but it won't count as a submission. So, yeah. That's that. Question from Madeline, a short and sweet one. Are you going to bet this year? Probably. Haven't 100% worked out the details of a bet trip yet, but I love going to bet. I particularly love going to the Teach Meet on Friday nights at bet. That's the highlight of it for me. So Teach Meet bet. Yeah, hopefully I'll be there. Can't give you 100% on that yet. I've been planning to go, but life happens, and so I may not be there, but I'm planning to go there. But I can't say 100% certain yet. Haven't booked my plane tickets yet, so we'll see. But I hope to be there. Question from Claire. Know of a good mind map generator that doesn't cost the earth? Asking for an A-level history student daughter. So I wrote back to Claire with a list of my favorite tools for making mind maps and flow charts. One of those that I really like is just using Google Drawings. You can just use Google Drawings and hyperlink elements in there. Padlet also has some great mind map templates. You may also want to take a look at bubble.us. I've used bubble.us, I think, for 12 years. It's one of the first Web 2.0 tools I ever used in my classroom way back when. Yeah, I think it's been 12 years. It's also one of the first things I ever wrote about on my blog. Still there, still works great. Give that a try. So I'd take a look at those options. All right. Question from Tom. I saw your video about adding timers to PowerPoint slides. Is there anything similar for Google Slides? I'd love to be able to have a timer without having to exit from my slides. Tom, I wish I had a solution for you that meets your needs, but I don't. Everything that I would suggest is a Chrome extension or a standalone web browser that would require you to open up a different tab and actually exit out of your presentation. So don't have anything perfect there. The only other thing I might suggest is put in a YouTube video that does a countdown. If you go to YouTube and look for just a simple old countdown timer display, you'll find plenty of them in there. All right? I'm looking at one right now that's uploaded from a person named Jack Murphy. It does a 10-minute countdown. It's just a 10-minute countdown video. That's all it does. It does nothing else. So you can try that. Just put the video inside your slides. But as for a native timer, no, there isn't one that I'm aware of. By the way, that video about making timers in PowerPoint is one of my most popular videos of the last couple of years. All right, last question came from Catherine, who wrote, "Thanks for hosting the conference." She's referring to the Practical EdTech conference. Thanks for hosting the conference. I know that you used GoToWebinar for all the sessions. I looked into that for hosting some webinars within our district, but it looks like it's really expensive. I'm wondering if you have any experience with Zoom or other options that aren't quite as expensive. Thanks, Catherine. So I do. I've tried Zoom. I actually still have a Zoom account. The free Zoom account is adequate for a webinar that's you're going to wrap up in 45 minutes or less. I've also used a service called Webinar Ninja. And I also use Webinar Jam. I didn't really care for either one of those two. Zoom I like. Webinar Ninja, Webinar Jam, I didn't care for using those two. They just were... They just didn't have enough features is what was wrong with those. Zoom I like because you can use it on your PC, your Mac. You can use it, people can join in on their phones. I like all of those. Honestly, I'm thinking of switching some of my stuff over to Zoom in 2020 because it is a little bit more affordable than GoToWebinar. My GoToWebinar account cost me $194 a month, and that's with a small discount. I think the regular price on that is like $219 a month. That's with a small discount that I negotiated years ago when GoToWebinar called me after I tried to cancel my account. So it's much like DirecTV. I tried to cancel my account. They called me back and said, "Hey, we'll give you a discount." Like, okay, great. But I like GoToWebinar. I've been using it since 2012. So almost 8 years. I've been using GoToWebinar for almost 8 years. In 8 years, I've only ever had it drop one time on me. there's been times when it's dropped because I lost my internet or lost my power. But there's only ever been one time where GoToWebinar it didn't work on their end for me. It's very easy to record your webinars and download them as MP4s and play them back. They've got a ton of registration options, a ton of ways to use it on every platform. And it's rock solid. But it is expensive. It is expensive. So, Zoom I like. I've been using Zoom for recording some interviews with people. And honestly, I'm looking at using it myself a little bit more in 2020. So yeah, Zoom is a good alternative. But if it's just a webinar in your district for your district, no one outside of it, you might be able to get away with using just Google Hangouts Meet or Hangouts Meet. You might, if you're a Google school, might be able to get away with that. Okay. Again, depending on what you are trying to do in the webinar. Okay. So that concludes this episode of the Practical EdTech Podcast. As always, if you have any questions for me, send me an email, richard@burn.media, and I'll be happy to include your question in the next episode of the podcast. We're about a week away from winter vacation for many of us, for most of us, I think. You can do it. We have 1 week left. You can make it. We're gonna finish 2019 strong and finish 2020 even better. Start 2020 even better. And speaking of starting 2020, if one of your goals for the new year is to get in shape like mine was last year, this time last year, I found myself almost 40 pounds heavier than I wanted to be, almost 40 pounds heavier than I am today as I sit here right now. And I decided to start banging out some workouts every day. Now, I didn't get them every single day of the year. I'm at 292 right now. So I'm going to finish the year with an average of about 6 per week. Not super intense workouts, just some workouts. And makes a huge difference. So that's my plug for edtechfitness.com, where I'm going to start a new little group in 2020 for people who want a little bit of accountability and staying on track. All right, enough of me. Have a great weekend. 1 more week of school. You can do it. You can make it. I'm with you.